All right, guys, we have Wendy Patton here, who is really one of my biggest mentors. She's the queen of real estate here in Metro Detroit and Southeast Michigan, and especially when it comes to creative financing and creative real estate and lease options, sandwich lease options, etc. So I'm just super excited to have Wendy on here and just kind of have her share her story and talk about what she does, which is a lot. We could probably be here for 3 hours, 5 hours if we talk about everything Wendy is doing. But she really is one of the people that, like, one of the first days I was ever in real estate, basically, one of the first things I ever did was go to one of her meetups at her REIA, the MREIA, the Michigan Real Estate Investors Association. And I talked to her afterward, and she just kind of guided me in the right direction and got me into real estate and got me on the right path, I guess. So I'm super excited to have you here, Wendy, just because, like I said, we've been, good friends for years, and you are one of my biggest mentors. So I appreciate you a ton, and you've been through the thick and thin, the battles, seen different markets, seen all kinds of different stuff. So I appreciate having you here today.
Great. I'm glad to be here, Brandon. So I'm looking forward to talking about real estate, whatever it is we decide to go with. I don't know.
Yeah, that's usually how our conversations go. It kind of goes a little bit everywhere. So, like I said, guys, she does a lot. I mean, there's a number of things I'll have you kind of touch on, like how you got started into real estate, and you can divulge how long you've been doing it. So I'll leave that up to you, and you can kind of talk about how you got into it, what you've been doing. Yeah, obviously been doing real estate investing, a lot of creative stuff for years, and now as brokerages, title companies, obviously has real estate of her own, and has bought and sold a ton of real estate. So kind of the gamut, and Wendy's seen it all. So I guess just start with the beginnings, kind of how you got into it, and kind of how that led you to where you are now today.
Okay, well, I'll tell you a little bit about, I guess, kind of when I started and how I got started. I started in 1985, so you can do the math, and it's been quite a long time. I started in real estate. I bought my first rental property that year. I had actually graduated from college that year, and I went to the University of Colorado. I was born and raised there. So, then I get this job offer in Michigan, Detroit, Michigan. I'm like, well, I've never been to Michigan, I've never been there. So right before I was leaving, my mother pulled me aside and gave me a real estate course. And it said to me, Wendy, I went to this seminar the other night, it's a real estate investor group, kind of like my group you mentioned in Michigan, Michigan Real Estate Investors. It was similar to that kind of group. And she went to hear a presentation on investing and decided to buy the speaker's course, whoever it was, about investing. And then when she got home, my dad said, no, we're not doing that. And so she gave me, I happened to be moving to Michigan in a few days after that time period. And she pulled me aside one day and she goes, I just want to give you this course. And I'm hoping that you'll do something with it for me. Wendy, I really feel like investing is the way to future financial freedom. And I believe it. I believed it to buy this course. And so I'm going to give it to you. And tell me what you think about it. So, I had this 3-day drive, 2 or 3 day drive from Colorado to Michigan while my stuff was being moved in the van. And I just looked over and I saw that course in my car, and I was bored, and I was driving through Kansas. It's very flat. And I decided, what, I'm just going to listen to that. So I started listening to that course in my car. And I mean, that's really the turning point, Brandon. That changed my life, because I remember listening to it, and it just made me think, wow.
Yep.
I want to do that.
Yeah.
I could make that kind of money doing investing. I mean,
yeah.
I've always liked to kind of tinker, fix and flip stuff, but more so like, buying something cheap and selling it higher when I was younger. And I kind of did that a little bit in college, where my parents would go to these auction houses and I'd buy these dressers, for $50, antique dressers, and I'd sell them in the paper for $75. And I thought it was really cool, made $25 and I didn't do anything, or did very little. So that's kind of how my investing career started. And when I came to Michigan, I joined a local investor group, which I always recommend to people who are serious about investing, really get networked with people that are like-minded and have the kind of training and education that you need to build a real estate investing business. And that's how I got started in it. That was many years ago. And I, as you know, I I started dabbling. First of all, I didn't have any money or credit. I mean, I had credit, but I didn't have any, how would I say it? I really started kind of buying on credit cards, which is not what I teach people to do. However, that's all I really knew how to do back in the 80s. And so I would take these cash advances from my credit card, and that would be my down payment. And then I would buy homes seller financed, or I could go get a mortgage on them. You know, back then, you didn't have to season the funds. You know, when I took that money I would go to the bank, get this little cashier's check or whatever, put it in my bank account, and it didn't have to be seasoned. They didn't care where it came from as long as you had the money. Nowadays, of course, you really can't do that per se unless you let it sit there for quite some time. But that's how I started buying, and I started buying rental properties, and I started doing some fix and flips, and I really started building an expertise in lease options. That was really my main gig. And the reason is because you can only buy a certain number of mortgages anyways before you get cut off, right? Mm-hmm. So now it may be 10, 4 to 10, somewhere in there, depending on your lender. And so if you only can buy 10 properties, you either got to have a lot of cash or you got to wait till you paid some of those mortgages off. And that can be, you know, a longer term type of thing. So I had to learn something creative, and I learned lease options, and then I learned subject twos also. And the lease options were really my primary deal, where I would buy a property on an option from an owner. I'd lock it up with a lease option, and then I would sometimes sublet it on a lease option, or sometimes I would just rent it out if I had really great cash flow and the spread between my payment and their payment was a big number. Sometimes I would do that, and many times I made more money per month on properties I didn't own than the ones I did own. You know, so you know, the ones I had gotten a mortgage on, I might make a couple $100 a month or $150 a month net. And then sometimes with the properties I didn't own, I was able to get $500 to $800 a month sometimes. Well, that's a big difference, right? And so I was able to kind of really increase my cash flow by doing some cool stuff like that. So that's kind of it in a nutshell how I got started. I didn't know if that's how far you wanted me to go, but that kind of gets it launched a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's huge, because I think there's a lot of people that obviously know you in general. I guess there's a lot of people that know you just for the investing side of things. And then also I think what you're probably best known for in that world is that creative financing and lease options and sandwich lease options and stuff like that, which I think is probably still pretty unknown. A lot of people in the real estate world still don't understand that necessarily, and they don't kind of understand how that works. So I appreciate you kind of explaining that, because it's still something that I think a lot of people struggle with, or it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around, I guess, if you will, if you haven't done it or haven't been through that. So I appreciate you explaining that. But yeah, no, that was perfect. It kind of segues into, so you had, obviously had the course, and then, that kind of changed your life coming to Michigan. And then where did, again, I know a lot of your stories, so it's sometimes I want to make sure for the viewer that we're kind of hitting all the points. But where did that transition go to, okay, now I'm in Michigan, and because now you have obviously the REIA that you are doing, the brokerages, that you have, like, where did all that kind of come into play then? So you're doing the real estate investing on the creative side and kind of learning that for years and doing that. Where did okay, now I'm in the business owning mode of having a title company and then brokerages, and then I've got the REIA. Where did that all kind of fit in?
Well, I guess it kind of, as you start doing something and become really good at it, other doors open for you. And I was always like a really hard worker, and I really always wanted to kind of just do more. I don't know what it is, but I always love to get my hands into stuff, even if I, like right now, I mean, I told you a little bit before, but I'm working on a project right now in Phoenix with the Keller Williams, just because I love it. I really love helping turn something around and making something different and making it better. And it's a really kind of important part of my life. But the way that I kind of got started was I started having a lot of properties. So I ended up with about 100 and some properties, and it really started growing in the late 90s. Yeah. That's really when my real estate career probably really took off. Yeah. And it kind of expanded because I started, I guess it was maybe in the late, maybe mid 90s, I'm going to say. Someone came to me and said, "Hey, Wendy, would you be willing to be a broker and manage or run a property management company first because you have so many properties of your own, you're already doing it. Would you be willing to do that? And I said, well, let me think about it. And as I started thinking about it, I thought, well, why would I do it for them? I mean, I can just do it for myself.
Right.
I'll be the broker. So I did. I started a property management company, started managing for other people, and got my broker's license at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I built this kind of small company, which is still in existence today, called Millennium Realty. And the woman who ran it for me, her name is Amy. By the time 2002 came, I said, Amy, I really don't love property management. I don't even like manage my own properties. I really don't care for tenants anymore. I've been dealing with them a long time. It's been almost 20 years and I'm done with them. And she was running it for me. And I said, would you just, kind of take over the business? You can have it. And we worked out a very small deal for buying it. And she runs it today to this point and now manages for me and manages, I don't know, 600 or 800 properties. I don't know, quite a few.
Yeah.
So she's turned it into something much bigger than I did. And she loves property management. Yeah, she has. Yeah. And so now she manages for me. She manages my properties. So I don't manage my own properties anymore. And then after that, right about that same time, I still had a brokerage, but I had agents that were just investors. And then about that time, I was approached by Gary Keller to be in this book called The Millionaire Real Estate Investor Book. They were, I guess, writing a book to kind of try to understand the systems and models and what does it take to be a very successful investor. And I was one of the people they interviewed for it. So that was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, that's awesome.
It was kind of cool. So that's how I kind of got into the Keller Williams realm. And they weren't trying to recruit me. I had my own brokerage. It was strictly, truly a professional, interview. Mm-hmm. And at the time I was also speaking around the country, teaching people about investing. So I kind of forgot that part, but I got into helping my local group. I would teach locally. And then we had a speaker that came to one of our investor groups and they said, hey, do you want to go golfing? And I happened to got paired up with this speaker. And he said, well, why don't, do you speak? And I go, yeah, I speak. Because I was telling him what I do. And he goes, you should teach people this. I said, I do. I teach them here locally. And he goes, well, do you have a course? I said, no, I don't have a course. He goes, well, create one. So that's how the whole speaking thing started. And then I had this course. Wow. Then I was speaking around the country, selling this course and offering people a lease option and subject to courses. And then Gary Keller approached me, and then a publisher approached me about writing a book. And I said, yeah, I want to write a book one day. And I had never heard of this company, although they've been around 200 years. They're quite a large publisher, had reached out to me. And I said, yeah, I'd like to write one, but probably in 5-10 years, that'll be it's on my goal list.
Yeah.
Said, no, we need you to write one in 90 days. They give me 90 days to write a flipping book. Are you kidding me? And I mean, not easy. It's very intense schedule when you write a book. Anyways.
Yeah, I can imagine.
When you're on their schedule, at least. Yeah,
right.
So I ended up doing that, and then kind of things just started, more doors started opening, right? And then, and then at one point, I made a decision. I didn't really actually like being the broker of an office, although I am still a broker. That wasn't my forte, and I decided to join Keller Williams at that point in 2007. And then a couple of years later, I said, gosh, I don't really like just, being an agent. I really want to own an office.
Yeah.
And so I ended up buying some shares, and then over time ended up being the operating partner of my office that's local, as you know.
Yeah.
And love it. And through that, then, you have an opportunity to open a title company. So we opened a big title company, and that's in quite a few offices. It turned out to be not just a little title company. Now it's probably medium size. They would call medium-sized title company. Mm-hmm. We maybe close on a very low end would be 300 a month to 600 a month. A month. It's quite a good size title company.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And then it kind of just grew from there. And then just recently I had an opportunity I have a son that lives in Phoenix. One of our daughters lives in California, and she just had a baby. My first grandbaby there. Yeah. And then I have another grandbaby here in Michigan as well. And my daughter out there said, gosh, Mom, if you had a place in Phoenix, you know, you could really just fly the weekend. It's $100. You could come see me and I could come see you. And
Big sell job.
you know,
Yep.
right. And we've been wanting to have a place in the Phoenix for a few years and just to get out of the cold somewhat during, you know, the cold winters. And so I started looking for an office there, and I had an opportunity to buy in and become the operating partner of a office in the Phoenix area. So that's just
so
brand
cool.
new and literally only a few weeks old.
Yep. That's
There you go.
that's
That's it in a nutshell, Brandon.
I was gonna say, yeah, right, yeah. That's Wendy in a nutshell, and which is you kind of capped it with. That is Wendy in a nutshell, as in you're on your next adventure. So that is very Wendy-esque. It's cool. Thank you for sharing that. So the one thing which I don't think you touched on was the REIA. How did the REIA get started?
Yeah, I forgot that. The Michigan. So when I kind of was ready to start winding down speaking nationwide, I had, which when you speak typically on real estate investing, you're going to speak to these things called REIAs, right? Real Estate Investors Association. And so I reached back out to the one that I joined back in 1985, by the way.
Wow.
And I had reached back out to them. This was back probably 2005 or seven, on there. Yep. And I said, hey, I'm going to probably stop speaking around the road so much. And I really love teaching, though. I like helping people learn about investing. So if you'd be willing or able or ever want me to come speak, I mean, it's free. I'll just come teach your people locally how to do investing. I just, you know, kind of need to be able to do that. It's personal. And they said, well, we'll think about it. And honestly, they never got back to me. So I said, you know what? Why don't I just open my own? Yeah. So I did. Yeah. And we have about 1,200 members now locally, and about 13,000 people on our mailing list for people that are just Michigan type of investors that have either attended or said, hey, I'm interested in some of your investors that might have a deal they want to post on the website that they would be interested in looking at that and buying it. So it's kind of it's a little list, but we've started to grow it, and it's a group that's growing pretty rapidly.
Yeah. You know, yeah, that is too cool.
And tonight's our meeting, right? We have a meeting tonight.
Yeah.
It had to be virtual for a while.
Yeah. Ironic. We, and we'll probably post something afterward, but where can people find the REIA? So if they're listening, where can they find
MichiganRealestateInvestors.com or Detroit REIA, which is REIA.com. Either one, go to the same location. And that way you can check it out if you're a local investor or wannabe investor. And we do have a meeting tonight. You can attend your first one free, and then it's a membership organization that you join, and there's a lot of benefits besides being able to attend the meetings for free and that type of thing. That's all included, but we have a ton of things. Like one of the biggest things for me, Brandon, for me personally, and also some of my members, is we get an extra 2% of Home Depot rebate on everything you buy there. You know, you have to be registered properly and go through our organization, but it's on top of anything you already negotiate. So if you're watching this and you happen to be a contractor that spends, you know, over $10,000 a year, then you're going to get a couple $100 back a year.
That's huge.
On it.
Yeah.
And it's really big. So we have some people that get thousands and thousands of dollars back. We have a lot of builders that join just because they spend a lot of money there. And it's on top of anything else they already negotiated. It's a national rebate that comes directly from the National Association of Real Estate Investors. It doesn't come from our group. It's our group's a member of that, and that's benefit. Yeah.
Awesome. That's really cool. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Well, like I said, we'll put, you know, links in there or, you know, something. We'll get that in there. Transitioning kind of to, you know, and in the same vein, what is the biggest thing, like, because obviously you have a lot of people that you've seen over that last, you know, 15 years, we'll say, running the REIA, doing a lot, you're still very active in it. I mean, a lot of people would have done it for a few years and then left and like, oh, someone else is running it. But you're still very active in it. People can find you running around and talking to everybody and doing stuff at the meetings. And so, and because you just love it. You're the DI, right? You're talking, you're moving, you're shaking. So what's the biggest thing that people, like the biggest thing, like say, whether, I guess it could be a newbie, but someone else who maybe is intermediate or even advanced, what's the biggest question you get? People come up to you, whether it's, you know, I guess in person or maybe someone sending you a message. What's the biggest thing you generally see, or the most common question you get from people, you know, looking to get a leg up in the real estate world?
I would say there's two really big questions I get as I'm thinking through what do people ask me, and it's like two
Yeah.
really that repeat all the time. One is, where do I start, or how do I start?
Yeah.
And and then the second one is, do you have a mentor or coach or someone that can help me with boots on the ground, kind of someone local that can help me, that is successful, do what I want to do, or or will you do it, Wendy?
Yeah.
And I don't coach anymore. I don't do any of that anymore, but I have people that do coach that are local that I can recommend for sure, that do that.
Yeah.
And that's what they do, and they're really good at that. But the first question is, where do I get started? And I tell people, look, really the best place to get started is by attending the group meetings, right? And it sounds like I'm trying to say, join our group, but really it is because every single month we have a different
topic. I can vouch for them. Yeah.
So tonight's topic is a woman who's going to share about how to find like probate deals and pre-foreclosure deals and kind of unique niche deals. And that's a really important aspect of being an investor, is finding those deals, right?
Exactly.
And then the other thing is that you have to be really good at understanding all the variety of things. So, what's a lease, like even terminology, a lease option, a land contract, subject to a commercial building, a multifamily, a vacant land dealer, wholesaling, wholetailing, rehabbing. I mean, all these different things. And so those are kind of the topics that tend to rotate through our meetings, so that each month you're going to learn something new.
Yes.
Something about investing. Next month is Shark Tank. We always have Shark Tank in July.
That's a great one you guys put on.
It'll be virtual, but we're going to figure that out.
Yeah.
And we do it in July every year because it's one of the best ones, where if you're learning and you can find out, like, what do experts that, do properties every day, like, what goes through my head when I'm looking at a deal? Like, bam, 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 I can tell you, like, within very short time period, yes or no, if it's good, right?
Yes.
Well, when you're new, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know the questions to ask, and that's what Shark Tank is about. You'll get to hear what experts, what kind of things they want to know and how fast they want to know them and how they can determine good deals. So I always tell people, like, just get a feel for a variety of topics first, and it doesn't matter which one you pick. Just pick one. Doesn't matter. If you think fix and flip is your thing because you've watched a lot of HGTV, by all means, buy a course on that, right? That's the core. That's the thing. Wait till we have our seminar, come there, get that, right? But learn the other stuff, because eventually you might want to do those things, but don't buy everybody's everything. You can't do them all to start with. You're just not going to have the time to be good at everything initially. I'm not good at everything, and I've been doing it for over 30 years, and I'm really good at some things, and I know enough about real estate to be able to make my way through almost anything. I'm not an expert at everything, and I never will be.
Yeah, that's a great point, just because I think that's, so many of us, I guess probably the entrepreneurial mindset, those kind of people are generally, we're always looking for something. We're always looking for the next thing. I guess maybe shiny object syndrome. We all have that to some degree. So it's always like, what's that next thing? Focusing, like you said, is such a, exactly. Focusing is such a huge key to that. Because in the beginning, when people are starting out, I think it was really smart what you said, because in the beginning, you got to find out what you like. Like, what is it that you're really passionate about? What is it that you like that you're going to stay passionate about? And I think that's where in the beginning, you just got to try to shorten that curve. And instead of just keep jumping to every single thing, once you find something you're like, I'm really passionate about this, then focus in on that. Because that, what I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that's where I see a lot of people end up going wrong, because they're still trying to do too many things at once. Like you said, trying to be an expert in too many areas, and it just doesn't work well.
Like my husband always uses, I love this analogy. I don't know where he got it from, but I really like it. He always says, like, if you're trying to do everything, Wendy, you're good at nothing, right? But he's like, it's like this. You're going after all this, and you're trying to make a punch, right? Like this. Bam, what is that? He goes, instead of like one thing, bam, that's how you punch someone,
I've never heard anyone say it like that. That's really cool. Yeah, you break
your fingers otherwise, it's very painful. That's cool. That's the same kind of analogy,
Mm-hmm.
So I see you have all these books behind you, Brandon, and you probably have The One Thing.
I do.
It's a great book on that. And I will tell you that, I think Brandon and I read it together, I think.
Yeah, I think we did.
We have a mastermind we were in, and that was one of the books I'm sure we read, but
Yeah, one of my
example,
favorites of all time.
yes,
Yeah.
this is something that came out of it, and I still use this to this day. I took it from the book, and I had this printed. I don't know if you see it, but can you
Yeah.
see that?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we
And
can
it's
see.
basically my list, and I have a whole stack of these printed on my desk because basically it helps keep me focused because I'm a natural entrepreneur. I'm a natural
Yeah.
ADD personality where I can get distracted easily. Like probably a lot of people watching this, right?
Yes.
A lot of, like you said, entrepreneurs, right? You probably
Right.
like this, Brandon.
Yep. Yep.
A lot of
Absolutely.
things sound good, and it's like they
Exactly.
all sound good to
You
me,
think you can
honestly.
do everything? Yeah. I mean, it's like,
Yeah, people will ask me, well, Wendy, do you do like adult adult, what is this called, adult foster homes, adult care,
yeah, senior
old people
living.
homes,
And,
how's that?
yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Whatever you call them,
Yep.
and I'm totally intrigued by them. I
Hmm.
think there's a lot of money to be made in
Yeah.
that.
Absolutely.
I just can't tackle that right now with everything else I have going on because this keeps me focused. And that book really helped me by these are the things I'm going to do. These are the most important things for me right now. So I just can't do them all. But I love that.
Yeah.
I love the idea of that. I love the idea of apartment buildings to some extent, although I have one right now. I'm rehabbing a small one.
Yeah.
It's just not my niche. So it's not my niche.
Right.
And I know that I have a wheelhouse that I'm really good at. And I've decided to expand that once in a while. I get out of it a little bit and I kind of take a leap and do something different.
Hmm.
But in general, my wheelhouse is what I stick with because I know what works and I've spent my lifetime building what I have and I don't want to lose it because I decide to get too off track,
Hmm.
and try
Yeah.
something that I just am not an expert in yet.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's just great advice for anyone to heed for any walk of life, obviously. In kind of transitioning a little bit, but in the same vein, again, it's a good segue. So you mentioned multifamily. Obviously, we've talked about, single family and different stuff and the creative financing. Obviously one big thing that people, you read, like whether it's the Rich Dad Poor Dad books and like all this different stuff, which a lot of real estate investors get into initially. And a lot of that, is generally geared toward multifamily. That's what he does now, like a Kiyosaki or some of the bigger gurus out there, if you will. But it's still, hey, start small. Where do you kind of lie in that spectrum where it's like, some people jump right into multifamily, some people, we're all trying to find where we're supposed to be as a real estate investor, but what is your kind of suggestion?
Right.
Like, hey, which way should I go? Should I do single family or should I do multifamily? What do you generally tell people?
That's a great question. That I do get asked that a lot too, because a lot of people, think, gosh, I can make a lot more with multifamily, and you probably can, but you also have more to risk.
Mm-hmm.
So, personally, I'm not anti-multifamily by any means. I just tend to go single family. Again, it's my wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
I have had apartment buildings. I have one like right now I'm working on. It's
Mm-hmm.
probably my best deal ever. Is the one I'm working on right now. And it's only because of where it is. I don't intend to keep it. I intend to fix it up and I'm turning it over and selling it because it's not my thing,
Where's that one at? I'll have to talk to you.
I would say that multifamily. What's that?
Where's that one at? I might have to talk to you about that later.
Yeah, it's in Midtown.
Oh, okay. One of the Midtown ones. Yeah.
I gotta tell you about that one.
Story.
But anyways, I think it's my best one. We'll know for sure when I'm done, but I think it is. So, and again, that just came by word of mouth. I wasn't looking for that, right? It came because over time, the more you do and you tell people what you do, the more deals come your way. And that's why I've always also liked being in a very large brokerage because I have 300 agents in my office and they know what I do and I share with them what I do. And guess what? They bring me sometimes deals, right? Or questions about deals that they don't know what to do with. I had one yesterday. We had a little barbecue thing and a guy came up and told me they had this particular deal in Ferndale near here, right? And coincidentally, I have another house on that same exact street. And he was telling me that was a situation about the seller, that they have this tenant in there and they can't evict them. And right now during COVID, you can't evict anyone and it's freaking them out. And I said, I have no problem buying it with the tenant in there. I'll just evict them later. And I said, but are they paying? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, okay. Well, then I wouldn't have necessarily evicted them, but I'm interested. And so we just kind of talked about it. And I think that might end up being a potential deal for me. We'll see. We'll see. But again, it's just by people talking to you about knowing what you do and you sharing that, and they come up and say, hey, I got to ask you a question, or hey, you
Yes.
know, I've got a deal. What do you think about this?
Yeah.
But back to the single family versus multifamily, I would say for me, I would probably suggest most people start with single family unless you have a lot of money to play with. And some
Mhm.
of you do. Some people
Right.
start in the game with a lot. I didn't. Okay.
Right.
I started broke and I
Yeah.
started young. I didn't have a lot of income.
Yeah.
So I don't know if, for me, I couldn't have like carried something a little bit or put them like right now, that multifamily I'm telling you about, it's big
Mhm.
money to fix it up. I mean,
Right.
hundreds, and it's only 8 units.
Right.
Okay. So it's 8 units. It's not a huge 150 complex, unit
Right.
complex.
Exactly.
And which could be so much more. I mean, when something goes wrong with one of those, I mean, it's, $50,000 to get the sewer line fixed, or whatever.
Mhm.
Or, it could be, a $200,000 roof job,
Right.
when they're big. So you have to have kind of a little bit of wherewithal or some deep pockets associated
Yeah.
with you to be able to do those things. I
Yeah.
didn't when I started. So I typically tell people, for most people, start with single family and then build your way up, get some experience, get some cash going, and then maybe find another person who has the money or a person who has the apartment that's willing to partner with you or
Yeah.
something like that. I mean, there's ways to grow into big
Yeah.
deals for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I just never went down that route.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's
I think I went for the businesses instead.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you're kind of, I mean, in a way, it's because we all make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes in the beginning, obviously. So, learning on a smaller scale, obviously, is going to be, safer. Doesn't mean people can't jump to multifamily right away, but you're kind of using leverage in a way. Just like if you're using debt, you're magnifying mistakes. If you have a more units and a bigger property, mistakes are going to be costlier generally. So, sound advice for sure. In kind of again in that vein, what do you think holds people back? And just kind of a mindset thing, getting into a little bit of mindset here. But what do you think holds people back from investing the most? Is it people's mindset? Is it money generally, or like how do you kind of look at that? Because I know we all have our own preconceived notions, and for a lot of people, it's money a lot of times. So I'm curious to think, see what your thought is on what holds people back from getting in and growing.
I think you're on the right track. I think all of those things,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's all of those things. I think it is, I think which overall the encompassing, word would probably be fear.
Yeah.
And it could be fear because you don't have money, fear because you don't know what you're doing. So,
Yep.
There's a knowledge issue. And that, by the way, you'll never know everything you're going to be doing. So
Right.
that's something that you have to sometimes jump in. And I do that still to this day. I mean, however, being really transparent, I would say, even on this little apartment deal I bought, I'm like, oh my gosh, number one, I don't do apartments and I don't buy in Detroit very rarely. I bought a few deals ever in Detroit, and it's just, again, it's out of my wheelhouse. It's further away from me because obviously there's huge investment opportunity there. So It's not because it's not a good deal. It's just because it's not my thing, right? I'm not an expert in Detroit, nor do I even barely know it.
Right.
I mean, when someone told me where this was, I didn't even know that was Midtown. Okay, so I'm knowledgeable in Detroit, like probably you would be more so, Brandon, maybe, or your generation for sure.
Yeah.
You guys tend to hang out in Detroit a lot more than I would. But I think fear holds people back a lot, and it's definitely mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that would be, I mean, the older I get and the more I study and learn and then reflect on my life and other people's lives, learning from others' mistakes, to me, it's definitely mindset and fear. They kind of go hand in hand, obviously. But in saying that, how big of a role is mindset in your life? Because like, obviously when you were starting out, there's a number of different ventures you've done now in your life. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of those different things were scary and you decided to push through them anyway. So what's that role mindset is playing? Is it something you've really actively worked on and thought about? Because I know some people generally might have a better mindset just naturally. Some have to work on it more. How big of that role of just mindset or working on it has it played in your life?
I think the biggest way to affect your mindset is by being around other people that are like-minded and forward thinking, and that can encourage you, because a lot of our success is based on mindset. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
and how we push ourselves forward through fear. Fear, if I were to also be transparent about this, I would say, sure, I still have fear to do a deal. People think, oh, when you've done so many, you know exactly what you're doing.
Right.
And you're probably never afraid. I'm like, no, I just push through it. I still think, oh man, I don't really know if I want to do that one. What if, what if that goes through my mind?
Yes.
And then I have to go, okay, Wendy, stop. You've looked at the comps. You've looked at the numbers. You know what you're doing. You have the crew to do it. I mean, you look through all those things. You've got the money lined up, whatever.
Yep.
What's the worst thing that can happen? Now, when I first started, when I was younger, I had less fear actually than I do now.
Wow.
Because I had nothing to lose then. Now I have something to lose. So now I kind of go, now I actually do think twice about, like, do I really want to lose $100,000 in this thing or whatever it is, or 50 or 20 or whatever. So I always think about that. Okay, Wendy, you can do this. You got it. But Brandon, right behind you, I mean, you and I, like when we did that mastermind and we did different books, and that's what changes this. Like what's between here, it's a lot of like putting good stuff in, right? And it's a lot of reading. I still read a lot. I mean, I have a couple books I'm reading right now, and they're not right here, they're at home. But 2 different ones that I'm in the middle of right now. And it's, they're mostly about leadership and organization right now because of
that's what you're doing. Yeah, exactly.
But there's a couple that we read, like The Millionaire Mind or The Millionaire Mindset, or which ones? I mean, we've read a lot of different ones. Yeah. And like right behind you, if you look at some of those books, those are the kind of things, like I think one of the biggest things that held me back, and it's a T. Harv Eker book on millionaire mindset or something millionaire. You just search T. Harv Eker.
Yeah, I've got it somewhere. That's a really good one. Yeah. This one, sure Secrets of the Millionaire Mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I love that one.
Yeah, really good.
And that one, I mean, I literally just read that one a few years back. So it's been within 3 years ago. Yeah. And it might have been one we did together, but it was a lot about how, like, I know for me, my mindset a long time ago was, gosh, if I break $100,000 a year, that's a lot of money.
Right.
I mean, nobody in my family made that much. I mean, in my dad's they didn't make that much,
Exactly.
And all my brothers were grads, top school in the country, military though, but they don't make $100,000 a year.
Right.
$100,000, So I had a ceiling in my mind of what
like
lot
a
of money was. And
it
took me a while to break through that, and then break through. And he talks about that in there.
Yeah. That's really good. And you touched on something a couple minutes ago, which made me think of Warren Buffett, who, like you said, you still, after years of doing this and doing, thousands of deals, you still have that fear of going into something, which, like, I think people that haven't maybe done it as much, or maybe they're younger in life and they haven't experienced it enough, you never get rid of that. You always hear quotes of, it doesn't go away. Successful people just still do it. They just push through that fear. Like you mentioned that exact word, or that exact phrasing, I think, actually. And then I think of Warren Buffett, who I think he like has some joke where he says like, my knees were knocking when I first learned to public speak. And then he took like a Dale Carnegie course and like that. So that way, not so his knees wouldn't knock, it was just so he could talk while his knees were knocking. So, it was just kind of like, again, mindset and controlling the mind, and pushing through fear.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So cool. Well, transition.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Did you have something to say about add to that?
No, I was just going to kind of say, just that, that whole idea of, with not having the fear, I really, I don't think I've ever actually expressed that fully about the fear, but I realized that even more so lately that, it's a healthy fear. It kind of makes you really double check yourself. If you don't have any fear, you might should, because you're not thinking through all the what ifs also. Yeah. And I tend to be a very optimistic person. So I do see things through rose-colored glasses generally. Like, oh, it's all going to be perfect. It's going to work out great. And,
well, that's the entrepreneur.
Having that mastermind, someone to encourage you or to help push you over the edge is really a great thing too. When I started investing in real estate, there was a group of us that we were all new actually. And we just kind of started meeting together, monthly, or maybe it was every 2 weeks. I don't remember for sure, but we would really push each other to take a next step and to conquer our fears. And I think that really kind of helped me get off ground zero, right? Let's go.
Yep. Awesome. Cool. We got a few more, and I know we're getting, been on about 45 minutes or so. So a few more, try to transition a little bit to more of like a macro, just kind of what's going on, the economy, kind of what's going on there. I mean, obviously, the virus is going around like that. That kind of, I think was maybe the pin that pricked the bubble. I mean, we've been talking this for years. I think literally 5 years ago, you and I were talking about just building up the reserves, whatever it might be, and just getting ready for another crash, whatever it might be. So what are your thoughts on just, the economy right now, where it's at, more importantly, where it is going forward, just what your thoughts are, and also how you're preparing for it. So I guess kind of twofold.
Got it. My own personal opinion, right?
Yeah.
This is Wendy's opinion.
Correct. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. So, it's kind of funny. Let's just say this. Any of my homes that people are moving out of or selling.
Yep.
We're selling anything we can this summer.
Yep.
Because we do feel like we're at the top of the market. There's still a shortage of inventory. We know that things are hot everywhere in the country.
Right.
We're going to take some money and sock it away, like you and I just said. We just said.
Yeah.
And we're holding it. Now, does that mean that I won't buy another house? No. Like I told you, a guy yesterday approached one of my Keller Williams meetings and told me about a deal. And if that deal came through, I would just buy it because it would be well under market value.
Yep.
And so we would still buy the right deal.
Right. Yeah.
We'll always buy the right deal. I'll always buy the right deal.
Yeah.
It's just that we're going to sell at the top we can also. We might also would buy the right deal, fix it up and flip it and not keep it as a rental either. Because we would want to take our cash and we're kind of holding back. I do some hard money lending and I'm really careful right now. Yeah. It's because, they're usually 6-month loans and I don't know what's going to happen in 6 months from now. Yeah. I'm concerned about that, really. Yeah. I think we're gonna potentially have a pretty serious recession.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we almost have to have that. I'm not an economic expert by any means. I'm thinking through a logical perspective of we've given all this money away to companies for payroll, for stimulus to individuals, all this extra unemployment. Well, that's all going to run out, and eventually, then what? There's still businesses in Michigan. We have a lot that are not even open. I mean, how are these people going to survive?
Right.
I have friends who've been very well off for many years, very well off, and their entire business is probably not going to ever, they'll be under before it could ever open again. Wow. They do conventions.
Wow.
Think about that. And I never thought about that. I was like, oh my gosh, right. How soon would that ever open, or would people feel comfortable going to large conventions where there's 15,000 people anymore?
Right.
I don't know when that's going to happen. So they told me yesterday, they're like, well, even we had just sold our interest in that company and we have stock in that company, and they basically have been told their stock is now worth nothing because of that. Wow. And these are people my age that were ready to set off into the sunset. So I think there's going to be some real ramifications. Those are those kind of people that they thought they would be all okay. Now they're not. So now they're going to what? They got to do something. And it means, and then all these people that are laid off thinking, well, they're making more sitting home not working than they were working. Yeah. So they're not real motivated right now to get back to work. But when they do, then are there going to be jobs for them?
Right.
I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know. What do you think? What's your perspective on all that?
Oh boy. Yeah. We need to do a whole nother show on all that. Because we've had our fair share of back and forth and talks about this over the years, obviously, but yeah, trying to be quick with it. I think I keep giving this analogy to everybody. I feel like we are the road runner and the coyote. I feel like we're the coyote and we're running off the cliff, chasing the road runner, and we are off the cliff. So much, inertia and energy. We're still going straight. We just haven't looked down yet. And I feel like that's where we are right now, because you like you said, you can't have all these people out of work and businesses falling apart. A lot of them haven't even seen yet, and it will probably never come back. You can't have all of that happen and then not have ramifications. So I feel like we're living in this weird bubble right now. The Fed's printing money, obviously, doing a lot of insane things, and they said they're going to keep doing insane things going forward. So I mean, again, we thought there was going to be another crash, 2015, 16, like a dead cat bounce. Never happened because the Fed did insane things. 0% interest rates, printing money like crazy, buying assets. So anyway, long story short, I think there's got to be some type of issues. You can't have nothing happen. So I who knows what will happen, but I just can't see there not being big changes over the next year or two. So that's but that's life. Like you said, it has to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I hope not. I love the bubble. I love
right.
looking down. I hope that we don't actually fall, and maybe we can keep running and get to the other side before it falls. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. Yep. Either way, I'll be safe no matter what, right? I mean, I'll be prepared either way. But.
Well, yeah, and that's where, like, you and I have talked about this many times, and I've talked about it on here numerous times. The gold and silver, real estate, even some crypto, some alternative assets. Just getting into some other assets to hedge yourself, hedge the dollar, hedge chaos, hedge just what's coming. It's kind of in that insurance, on life and what's going on. So I think that's what people really need to start focusing and understanding. If that wasn't a wake-up call the last 3 or 4 months, then I don't really know what is. So hopefully people are waking up to that. So what can you, one of the last things here I wanted to touch on quick is kind of toward that, which is just what can people, you've seen 87, the savings and loans, you've seen, the 90s and the .com, you've seen the Great Recession, the great financial crisis, and now what we're coming into, whether it's this year or in a year or 2 or 5 years, whatever it is, we have something coming. What lessons have you learned, I guess, or what things did you see that could help other people prepare, like things that you're going to do to help prepare, but like what did you see, or maybe trends or things that you're like, I got to remember that next time, next crash? Is there anything like where you're like, it's one lesson or 2 lessons where you took that from the other crashes where people can apply them now?
Yeah, I think like you're right. Like kind of what we just talked about with learning the lessons was I got hit hard in 2005 and 6 and 7 because I was leveraged more.
Yeah,
and I had to. I mean, literally, I had to bring money to the table to close a few properties. And and just seeing your property values drop like nothing crazy. So right after that, we were able to completely turn everything around because within 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, a little bit into 13, we were still buying really cheap properties that have maybe 10 cents on the dollar that have now been or 20 cents on the dollar that now have completely come back and are top dollar, and we don't have mortgages on them. So I think that was the biggest deal for me, was learning not to fully leverage long term. I think a lot of young people do think like, hey, leverage, pull your equity out and go buy another one. Like, yeah, that's not really such a good idea.
Especially people who've never been through a crash. Like a lot of the 20 somethings and young 30s have never lived through a crash.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, because even the .com crash really never affected my real estate much, so I didn't really have stocks or anything like that. I had real estate. It really didn't remember it affecting me that much at all in that regard. Yeah. And I remember I had this mentor. He was an older gentleman, a lot older than me. He was a dear friend, and it's still a dear friend, actually. He's still alive, but he's quite old now. But anyways, he told me, he goes, Wendy, you got to be prepared. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, real estate markets do this, and you've only seen this, and you haven't seen this yet, so you need to be prepared for that. I never really knew what that meant, Brandon, because I didn't really believe him. Yeah. I mean, I don't really watch the news much. I just kind of do my thing. I was like, this is the way I saw it. It was always going up. Yeah. Yep. He was right. And, we lost almost all of our net worth during that time. Now we regained way more because of the crash, but had we been prepared like we will be this time, we would have rushed. I mean, it would have been crazy. we still crushed it.
Right. Right.
I mean, I'm very blessed. We're very, very blessed. The things that I knew from before really enabled us to crush it during that time.
Yes.
However, we still lost a lot of equity assets because of not being prepared fully and not watching the signs. This time we're selling now. We'll have cash. Worst case, okay, it keeps going up. Oh, well, great for everybody else. I'm good. We made our money. We bought them during the downturn. We'd be still thrilled. Yeah. And then we'll just hard money lend it or whatever.
Yeah.
But or wait for those deals and buy back, once or two. But if things do kind of crash a little bit, or a lot, who knows, then we'll be prepared to swoop up and buy a lot.
Yeah.
A lot more than we did because last time I bought a lot with leveraged money.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This time it would be our money.
Right. Yeah, I think that's one thing, the common theme. I remember it was probably 7 years, probably when I met you. And I remember, everyone from, you to, the Ken McElroys or the Robert Kiyosaki's or even the Gary Vaynerchuk's. I mean, no matter where you go, you find successful people. And one of the common themes of a lot of what people will say is, hey, you make money in a crash, right? Warren Buffett talks about it. Everyone talks about it. And so many people who are successful now did do that very thing. And I think it's, for whatever reason, it's kind of like that herd mentality. And everyone knows buy low, sell high, yet so few people do it. And I think that, to me, it's just fascinating that it's such a hard thing for people to really do, because if that was the case, everyone would be wealthy. I mean, there would be a lot more wealthy people out there. So I think it's something for everyone to take away is, what you just said and what you lived and did. And like I said, the Gary V's and the Warren Buffett's, buying low, being smart and being prudent and preparing, like your mentor said, preparing for those downtimes. That way you can flourish during those times when everyone is running out of the burning building. You're going in and buying those fire sale assets. So huge, really good note to end on, at least in the business side. I've got one more. I know you're a travel aficionado, and you're always going everywhere. Your family's all over the place, so you get to travel a lot, and you love traveling. I know you and Michael do. Where's your favorite place to visit?
I don't have a favorite place because we don't tend to go back to the same place a lot. We try to see different places. There's so many, Brandon.
Yeah, I know you're always somewhere.
We love the island of Kauai. I love Europe. Michael's likes beaches, clean, nice, crystal clear beaches. I like culture, and we tend to rotate. I like South America. I mean, it's a lot of places we haven't been.
Yeah.
So they're all on the list.
Yeah, it's cool because I feel like every other time I'm reaching out to you, you're somewhere, or you're about to go somewhere. But it's cool because I think what really helps you see is just the rest of the world, obviously, but you get to learn so much from other people and other cultures. And so it's cool that you guys do that and get to experience that. Anything else that you have to share, you want to share? We're right on, about to hit 3 o'clock in a minute, so it's perfect timing. Anything else for you to share, or anything, any last bits of advice or anything like that?
I think I always just say, I love the Nike thing, just do it, and that is so true, is just get involved. And so many people, all the new agents we have coming into our offices, always say they want to learn about investing. Well, do it, learn about it and make it happen. The only thing that's holding you back from success is taking action. Typically is getting out there to take action. I mean, there's some hard work. You don't have to have money to do it. You just have to really have the tenacity to want to do it. Yeah. That's really never the smartest in my family, and I was never the smartest among my friends. I just worked harder. I mean, that's the truth. I just work hard. Yeah. And that helped me be successful.
Very cool.
So I was getting out there and doing it.
Very, very cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Brandon. I got to be on here finally.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it so much, Wendy. Where can people find you? I know we kind of touched on it before, but again, where can people find you? I know you're on social media everywhere, and where can people connect with you, find you?
So the best place to find me is probably wendypatton.com. And then all my social media links are right there as well. So you can kind of connect with me whichever place you like. I do quite a bit. I do try to do a little bit on bigger pockets, but really the Michigan REIA, if you're a Michigander, then be here, come to one of those or get on the Zoom calls.
Yeah.
And I do attend those and run those meetings and like to meet people that are local or people that are flying in from other states looking to invest here in our Michigan market. So yeah, thank you for giving me that opportunity to be here today.